Welcome back, everybody, to Real Talk and to our second guest of the day. Åsa, coming from Sweden, is now a local here in Boston. You'll find out more in a second. But welcome, Åsa, to Real Talk.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here with you guys.
So tell us about your exchange, right? So you're here in the room, which means you have an exchange story. Where are you coming from? Where did you go? How long ago was it?
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, I went to this really small town in Iowa. 1,000 people. Probably not what you think when you're gonna go on one exchange. Like, I thought maybe Florida, New York, something like that. But I ended up in a really small town, which was amazing. But that was 9 years ago when I flew over here. And I went to this host family with 5 kids. It's a really big one. We had a little frog. We had this dog named Lizzie that was kind of big when I came, but then we went for some walks and she got fit again. Super cute. And we did have like a mouse, I think, or the pet ones. But he passed away. I know.
So a bit of like a, definitely not the American life that you see on TV, like 5 kids and like frogs and animals and like small town America. Yeah.
So that's what I came from, and I came from Sweden, but now it feels like I'm from Iowa. That was my hometown. I went to school with 4 different towns in one, so we were all mixed up. It was like 350. Which was like a small school, but at the same time it felt big. Like it was 8 in my senior class, which I thought was really great. We became a really tight group, and it was just still enough people to have like a big pep rally and really feel the high school feeling. And yeah.
That's very, very different though, because you grew up in Stockholm, and so a school of 80 people per class must felt like super small.
Yeah. It was, and I came from a school with like 1,000 or 2,000 people, so it was really big. But I mean, like, that school that I came from, it felt small too, because it was like such a nice vibe. But in the US, it was kind of the same, like, I don't know, like people would talk to each other, but it was still some like culture differences that I was like not used to. That was both different for me, but in the same way really good. Yeah. Like, that I didn't expect at all.
Like, what were some of the things that surprised you in a good way, right? Like, I'm sure you had a moment when you were like, I'm going to Iowa, but then sort of what would surprise you in a good way?
Well, first of all, like, the first day in school, I must say. It was scary, like, at first when I got there. But one of the things was, the first day in school, everybody came up. Well, not everybody, but a few people came up to me and like, hey, do you want to sit at my table? Do you want to sit at this table? And I was like, I just like picked this girl. She was super nice, Janice, and I went to her table, sat there. And the next day I was like, okay, now I'm going to try something new. And I went to like a spot and like I wanted to sit with my friend Kristen, that she's actually now a very good friend of mine. And she's like, no, you can't sit here. That's tighter seats. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, no, like every day everybody sits at the same places. And I was like, oh, so now I'm stuck at one table. Like, I couldn't change. It was really great, but I wasn't used to somebody saying like, no, you can't sit here. Even though we, like, outside of school and in school, we were really good friends, it was still like a culture difference in terms of like, we had the same schedule every day. Everybody hung out with like the same people during the breaks.
Yeah, and you can't read about that online. That's like a brand new world. Yeah. Did you stay at the table the rest of the year?
I did. Yeah. The same table. But like those were like, they ended up to be really good friends of mine, so that was fine. But at the same time, it was like, a little scary that I couldn't change table, even though some of them were my friends. Yeah. But it's just the way how it is. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's just different. But it turned out really well.
Nice. There's lots of quirks and things that you only understand once going on exchange, but if we could rewind 10 years, so the year before you came here to the US,
Yeah.
Why did you decide you wanted to go on exchange? Why did you first decide to take sort of this leap into this world?
Yeah. So I kind of wish I was like, seeking to broaden my network, stuff like that. But, or like, new cultures and stuff. But actually, I was following a blog. So my best friend, her big sister, had a blog. And she had one episode when she wrote about dates. And I was like, okay, I need to read this. And I read it, and it was like before she went on a date, her dad made a document for the guys. They needed to fill out if they committed a crime, if they had a driver's license, what kind of like numbers the car had, like everything. And then he took them away and like had a little talk before they could bring her out for dinner. And when I read that, I was like, this is something I want to experience. Or, I just like felt I wanted to, I don't know, it was just like so different. And I felt like that's something I want to do. And of course, like Halloween, Christmas, Easter, like it's still like almost a little the same. Like we have some influences from the US. But at the same time, it's so different. And I felt like this is what I want to experience. I want to like get to know Americans, become better at English, all those things. But I think the most reason was like I got so inspired by her blog.
Wow.
And I don't know, it's just interesting. I never told her.
You've never told her?
No,
even today?
She was like the one that made me.
You should send her this.
I know I should. But yeah, so I read the blog.
That's amazing.
I don't know, is that controversial or like is that?
No, I mean for me,
know.
like my exact moment of like, yes, I'm gonna do that wasn't necessarily like reading about dating, but I was reading 17 magazine, and there was an article like this big about going on exchange, and that was it. It was game over. I read that, and that I made my decision. So I think that the thing about why exchange is there's a lot of stuff underneath it, but we all have that moment, and when we're like, this is it, right?
Yeah.
I actually have something that I want to show you. I think it's pretty fun. Of rewind in time.
No! Oh my god!
Your amazing application here. You probably haven't looked at it.
I tried to erase it. I went like into the IT and tried to erase it.
Well, it's here. It's here, and I printed it, so it's even more permanent now. This is your application, so you would have filled this out a decade ago. And I think it's super interesting because if you read through some of the things, and I'll have you look at it here in a second, the thing that I thought was most interesting was you said that you wanted to work with people and communication when you got older, and to be an exchange student would bring you further language skills so that you could communicate with people from different cultures and backgrounds. And it's crazy to see you now. So here you are.
I'm sitting saying, oh, was a blog like a dating thing? That's not what I said in the application.
I mean, you're not going to say that you did it for dating in an application. That's fine. But God. There you go. How old were you when you started applying?
14 or 15, I think, yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God. It's crazy. Conclusion. Comments. Oh my God. It's crazy. Oh my grades. Hide them. No, they're fine.
No, but it's super weird, right? To look back at like what you told the world why exchange, right? When you were a teenager, this is what you told the world why exchange. But now, it's been 9 years and your world has changed so much. Yeah. What would you say now? What would you say is your why exchange? Looking back over the last 9 years, what do you think about it now?
Yeah. I thought about this before, and I think it's mostly the way how I look upon going abroad and like other people. First of all, the thing that I now feel like wherever I go, I can create a home and feel like I can find friends and family as my natural ones. Yeah. Because the truth is that when I was living there, that was my truth. Like my house was my home. And now I know, like, whenever I go to a new country, that is gonna be my new home, even though it's different, because it's always different wherever you go. You feel like it can't be exactly, but at the same time, like, you know that in the beginning it's awkward.
Yeah.
You feel like you miss your I miss my friends so much, and like my family. But then in the end, like after maybe a month or two, you realize like, well, now I have a new home here. And the ones that you meet, like I have especially one thing, like, so we were a bunch of like exchange students in my school. We were 6, and that's like a lot for being such a small school. And we had like this guy from Taiwan, and he wasn't that good at English in the beginning, and I could not understand him. And I just felt like, oh, he's so annoying. And then in the end, like, he turned out to be one of my best friends. And he was like, he's hilarious, he's so funny, like, I just love him. But like in the beginning, I found him like annoying because we had such a hard like language barrier. And that's whenever you go, like, people probably thought that about me, like, we don't get her, like, we don't understand what she says or something. But then when you can communicate, that's when you realize, like, oh my god, there's so many awesome people, like, everywhere. And it's just, I don't know, that was, for me at that age, that was mind-breaking. And now I would be like, oh, that's so obvious. But for me, coming from Sweden, it wasn't that obvious that you just, like, you know, when you don't understand somebody, you can be kind of annoyed. But now I know, like, wherever you go, you'll find a home.
So you're going home. I love when exchange students go home. So tell us about what you're doing next weekend.
Yes. So the girl, you know, that I told you about that I couldn't sit next to because Tyler was sitting there, she's getting married next week. So I am going to her wedding. It's going to be so much fun. But first I'm going to Chicago, and I'm going to stay with my host brother a little bit. He's going to show me around in town. Hopefully I get to know his new girlfriend that I haven't met. And then we are driving to Iowa to spend a night with my host parents. And hopefully I can see Lainey, my host sister's new baby.
Oh, wow.
And she got married 2 years ago, and then I got to open the wedding. So I was really honored by that. So I'm going to go and visit them a little bit, and then I'm going to come back here.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's just like so cool and like so hard to fully like put into words or to describe, but I think it's funny that it's the girl that you couldn't sit by and it's her wedding.
I know. And that's the funny thing, like, for me that was almost a little bit rude. Like, she said, you can't sit here. And for me, it took a lot for me to go up there trying to change table. Like, you know, if you see everybody sitting at the same spot every day, and I take my courage to, like, go up there and, like, trying to sit next to them. Like, I didn't know them that well because I was new. And she says, you can't sit here. It's just, for me, that was like, okay, I'll go back to my spot over here. We'll never talk again. But it was just a culture difference that I didn't know of. But now I know, and I know it's okay too.
Now you can bring it up this weekend when she gets married. Hey, remember 9 years ago you said I couldn't sit with you?
Exactly.
I think the thing about exchange as well is that we remember, we hold on to little things, and we forget little things as well, like the fact you haven't looked at your application in almost a decade. I thought it was also really funny to show what baby Osa's application photo looks like. Look at this.
Oh my god.
It's in black and white. She submitted a black and white photo for your application.
It's almost the same, right?
It's crazy, right? So, like, you know, you look back at younger you and why you went on exchange, and now 9 years later, knowing what you know, what would you say for why exchange?
Wow. That's such a, like, big question. But I think it's like most how you realize that when you go on exchange, you can build a home wherever you go.
Yeah.
Like, the truth is, like, where you are, those are your family, your real, it feels like it's your real siblings, like your friends are your best friends, and you know the truth is that you have another life back in your home country, like your natural parents that try to contact you and know what you are up to. And I was just like so focused in like this is my house.
Yeah.
You know, like when I was walking or coming home from school like with a car, it's just like this is my house. Like it's my fridge. It's like, you know, it wasn't like I was thinking about like if I would like do something in my home. It was my real home. And I think that's the really important part, but also that you realize like things that you didn't notice other people could maybe like get annoyed by, or like you would be annoyed by other people and not realize why. And then suddenly when you hear their opinion and realize, oh, this is so normal. Like, for example, okay, this is a little bit off the topic, but my host, like, I'm used to coming home to a home where it's only my mom, my dad, and my brother. So when I came home, I would yell, like, hello! And, you know, to make sure, like...
In Sweden, right?
In Sweden, yeah. To know I'm home. But apparently, my host family, they're just like, why is she coming home and yelling all the time? Like, so when I've been like out with friends and I would come home at like, I don't know, 10 or something like that, not too late, my dad would sit in the couch doing this. And I would say, hello, and they would make fun of me, and I would never know, like, why, and they would laughing when I came inside and, you know, talk to them, but just, like, those cultural differences that you can never, like, you cannot study them, you cannot learn them without being in that culture or country. And also things like, you know, my host family would fight sometimes, like, it wasn't just easy or just fun all the time. But you realize when you hear, you can be so annoyed and so frustrated, but once you hear the other person's stories, you just like, it just all comes to you and like, how could I have missed this? How did I not notice that person was annoyed, or, you know, those things that you can't really, like, it's hard to describe, but you learn those things when you go on an exchange. Like how you can create a home wherever your like your loves, like family, friends, they are, you can create that wherever you go. And even though there are still like, you know, everything can happen in this world right now. Like you can lose your friends, your family, like it's not sustainable. Like you can never take anything for granted. Like anything can happen, and just knowing that you will always have them in your heart, but go on and create a new life or have new friends wherever you go. I think that's the main reason, even though I went a little bit off topic.
I think it's perfect. I think it's one part patience, right? You go on exchange because you gain this understanding of other people and the patience needed to understand. I think the thing that you said that is so special about why exchange is, it's about almost learning what love really means and what family means, because you're not going to realize you love someone if everything's perfect. For me, it was the first time I had a fight with my host parents. The first time my host dad got really mad at me is when I felt like I was home. Because I wasn't just a guest. They weren't going to like walk on eggshells around me. Yeah. But they were actually like upset with something that I did. And then I was upset. And then we came back together because we love each other. And I think that also is a really cool thing of what you mentioned, is like it's not easy, but that's what makes it worth it, you know? What would you say if you look at that baby Osa picture, what would you say to her, knowing what you know now, if she were beginning her exchange year?
I think it would be like to put out myself more there, to reach out to people earlier. I think like the second part of my exchange, like the second semester, I did it more. But when I just realized when I look back at my exchange how many people like did so much effort. Like it's a little cliche to say like my IC how much it did, or like to say that was my contact person, or like my host family, like, you know, they wrote my name, they made a sign, like, you know, like all this like nice things that you kind of course you like expected a little bit, but now when I think back, like they did so much, like friends at school, like how many times they asked me, do you need a ride? Like, yeah, of course I need a ride because I don't have a car. I need to get somewhere, like I need to go to the games and stuff like that. But just like, you know, they did so much, and I wish I reached out more and said like, hey, do you want to hang out? Do you want to do this? Like, I have this cool idea, do you want to do it? But they reached out a lot to me in the beginning. And not like everybody reached out to me like, hey, do you want to hang out? You know, but just the fact that some people did. It's just like it's such a love that you, I don't know if I experienced it in Sweden, because then you, like, I grew up, of course, or at least I grew up like almost in the same house, like my whole life. But and I know that's not for not everybody does that, but for example, like they just reached out, and I wish I reached out more in the beginning. But it was a lot of things, like the language barrier, like you didn't feel confident in being in a new country. You didn't know like how much can I be gone during the weekends with my host family. Something you need to talk about, like, are we gonna do something this weekend, or can I hang out with my friends, or are we planning something? Like, you know, those things when you're trying to adjust to a new host family, you don't want to like push too much, like, I don't want to be with you, I just want to be with my friends, those little things. But I wish I did it more in the beginning. I think I reached out more later, and what I experienced when I talked to a lot of exchange students is, or it's that they say, I wish I put myself out there more, or I wasn't talking so much on Skype or social media, or like talking to my friends back home, because they're there, like they even though you want it or not, they're continuing their lives. And what you experience, like when you come back, it's maybe not gonna be the same. Maybe it's gonna be better, like more people that you get to know. But they will still be your friends when you come back, or you realize you don't want to be friends with them anymore. Like, but just like to put myself out there more.
Yeah.
And maybe, as I was saying, change the table more often. Like, I don't know, reach out and like, hey, can I sit here? Like, the worst thing that can happen, like, no, you can't. And that's hurtful, but, you know, you're gonna maybe be friends with them anyways.
You at least know it's a yes or a no, and what do we have to lose? Like, put yourself out there. And I think she's right. You know, we hear time and time again, like, the regret we have is not fully being present, because you know, earlier we were talking about your last day on exchange and how you were so afraid it would never be the same again. And I was the same way. I'll never forget standing on that train, standing in front of the train, just like, this is never going to be the same again. Yeah. And it won't.
No.
Because you're not that anymore.
Yeah.
You're not 16-year-old you.
And I've seen like so many exchange students, like, you know, crying when they're leaving, and like, it will never be the same. And I was crying too, like, it will never be the same. But the greatest thing I learned from my exchange, like, was, okay, when I left Sweden, like, I was so sad leaving all my friends. But then I cried even more when I was leaving the US. And then the next year I was crying even more when I graduated in Sweden. And then I was crying when I left college or university. You know, it's just like every year just almost beats every year. It's just, you never know what's going to be around the corner. Yeah. So it's just like to, Osa, put yourself out there more. Because you never know what's going to be the next time. Even though you will miss what's been, it's just, you never know what the future will bring. That's
like
amazing.
Moving to Boston.
Exactly.
And continuing your exchange story. And I think the thing about exchange stories is they start, but it's your choice to make sure they never end. You know, you are on chapter 9 and I am on chapter 10 of exchange, and that it's been a while since we started. And of course it'll never be the same, because we'll never be the same. And we haven't changed. I think that the wording is tricky. Yes, we've changed, but not to a different person. We have just become better versions of ourselves. And I think it's a beautiful thing that at 16 we got the opportunity to start to figure out who we were born to be, who we were supposed to be. And here we are, like a decade later, like still figuring it out, like obviously still figuring it out, but it's just, you're right. Put yourself out there because you never know what's next, and you never know like how you're going to learn more about yourself in the years to come. I mean, that to now, would you have seen yourself here in Boston?
No. Like, honestly, like, first of all, I didn't know what to, like, I probably just thought, I was so like, oh, I'm gonna go on exchange, like, but no, I would never have known that I was gonna be here 10 years later. And you know, when I came here, so I was like, oh, I'm moving to Boston, I'm gonna run this amazing, like, ambassador program that I'm, like, so thankful to be in. But when I arrived here, I was like, well, this is home. But no, I didn't think I was gonna be here. I don't think somebody at my age would do. Like, I don't know what I expected. Being an adult, maybe. What that means, I don't know. But yeah, just amazing to be here.
And we're super happy to have you back in your home exchange world and here on Real Talk. So a big thank you to Åsa for joining us and for sharing your exchange story and sort of giving us an insight into your world of creating communities. And you're still doing it. This is your new home. If you want to reach out to Åsa, check below. There's her information. Add her on Instagram. Send her a message. In particular for Sweden or Iowa, she's got you covered for sure. But thank you guys so much. We will see you next week on Real Talk for another time of real, authentic stories.